What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coming in Clutch. I'm your host, LA Car Spotter, aka Cody Lewis.
And my name is Lorenzo Giacomini, aka The Speedy Guidi. And guys, we have an amazing show for you today. We have a very, very special person coming on. You may have seen him on shows like Ignition or Head to Head. He's my personal favorite journalist and bread baker, Johnny Lieberman. Welcome.
Welcome, Johnny. Welcome.
How are we doing?
We finally got you on the show.
Yeah. Look at that face.
What a face, right? Face made for podcasting.
It goes to show if you bother someone enough on Instagram in the DMs, he may be able to
I
come
think
on
he
the
asked me
show.
once, by the way.
Honestly, to be completely fair, I think I asked him one time and he said sure.
Yeah.
And
that's how bored I am, people. If you have a podcast.
I'm super excited about it, and I can't tell you how many people, when I told them that you were going to be on my show, they were like, "Oh my God, how?" And I'm like, "On our show."
Point Lorenzo.
They were like, "How'd you even get?" And I'm like, "I DM'd him," and they were just like so surprised.
Well, I also know you. I mean, Cody, we met a few times.
That's fair.
You steal all my masks.
That's
You
fair
threw
again.
my masks as far as I can
That's
tell.
true.
You have my Mango Motorhead mask,
Yes.
Magnus Walker mask, and then my Lucid mask.
And
I think
now
you have.
the Lucid mask. Yes.
And then Lorenzo, we met, like you were saying,
A long time ago. I was like in college and I was still a Ferrari fanboy. It's actually funny because you were with Michael Schaefer.
Schaefer.
And the reason
Schaefer.
why I saw you is because I saw him and MotorTrend came out this video about how much he loves Ferraris. And he was the Ferrari fanboy at Best Driver's Car.
He still is.
Capital
Yes.
Sunset, right?
But I showed up.
Awesome photography.
But I showed up to this Ferrari Cosmo. I had my Ferrari Pumas, my Ferrari belt. Like I was such a Ferrari watch. I was such a little douchebag.
Ferrari shoes are that's
The red leather Pumas,
man.
that is bad.
Wow.
But
go ahead.
and we got to talking, and then I asked you the regular questions. How do I get your job? And this and that. And we'll dive into that a little bit because I know a lot of people want to know how to get into that world. But I think what's interesting about you is that we talked about it so long. So I read and listen to all these different podcasts with different journalists. And the thing is that you aren't a race car driver. You got Jethro, and you got the Chris Harrises of the world, these guys who are just driving sideways. Everyone like, look at this car, limit full opposite lock, it's amazing. And then but you have like this amazing way of writing that's so personable and it's very down to earth and it's very
thank you.
It's a very, for lack of a better term, it's like the normal people's you kind of
the everyman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can review a car in a really, really interesting way that is more easy for everybody. So how'd you kind of get to it's easier to read than saying, the mechanical, grip of this car.
So two things. The one part no one ever talks about is that, I spent a long time becoming a writer before I ever tried to write about cars. I actually thought I'd be a bass player in a very big punk band or something like that. So my 16 bass. I don't know about slapping, but my 16-year-old self would be very disappointed in my career. But no, I thought I'd be a pro writer. I mean, I thought I'd be writing books, and after college, I had planned on going to getting a master's degree in creative writing, MFA, Master of Fine Arts. And I actually, it was, I think, University of New Orleans. I'd planned to maybe go there, but I took the summer writers workshop that they had in Prague. And that was really formative because we had some amazing writers were there. Like Amy Tan was one of them. And she was actually incredible. She gave me a piece of advice that I still use, which is, she very often would write something and either throw the whole thing away. And we're talking 300,000 words into a book, trash it. Or sometimes she said, and this is such a good piece of advice, she said, sometimes I'll just start writing and I'll just throw away the first paragraph. And a lot of what we concentrated on was the importance of grabbing them, the first paragraph. And I had this other professor that summer, Arnos Lustig, known as Lusty Lustig.
That's an epic name.
He was the editor of, at the time, this is you guys weren't even born yet, but early 90s. He was the editor of...
I was born.
You're 60 years old.
He was the editor of Czech Playboy. But the guy was also a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
And he could tell a story like no one else. And he would say, he's you talk about the importance of the first paragraph. And I remember he was telling us a story about his buddy. He writes a story, and the very first paragraph, the main character is getting a blowjob. And the guy, the writer... I
like it already. You got me hooked.
Well, the writer shows it to his daughter, and she's like, Dad, like, how could you write this? This is terrible. So he rewrites it, and the main character is giving himself a blowjob. And so...
Say no more.
Yeah, so that's my guiding philosophy is I want to, like, hit him real hard in the mouth in the first paragraph so they have to finish. You know, you have to finish the story.
No pun intended.
Yeah. and I think
we can edit that out.
No.
I think a lot of people kind of skip that step. They have such passion and enthusiasm for cars, but they never spent. I did movie reviews, music reviews, like all kinds of stuff for a long time before I ever tried to write about cars.
Right. That's actually really interesting you say that because every journalist that I meet, whether that be, we ran into Henry Catchpole at Car Week, and I was like, what? And you were like, what is the one piece of advice? He's like, just read and write a lot. And I was like, that's so boring. No, I don't want to do that. But that's the way it has to go, you know?
I mean, what I was going to say is that you mentioned first, like, learn to be a writer. And I've just from reading and listening to these guys, like he said, you could tell some people are literally like ex-race car drivers or like have so much car experience, automotive experience, that they know when, you know, a screw is loose and they're making a turn and they can literally tell every single thing that's happening in a car. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they can write about it. And also the same thing, just because you're a fantastic writer doesn't mean that you know anything about cars, sure, let alone how to review a car. So, like, how were you able to bridge that? You said you came from writing, but where did all your car knowledge come from?
Since my earliest memories are of cars. I mean, I just always loved cars, and I used to religiously read back when I was a kid. And I was into new cars. You know, I was never into like hot rod stuff. I was always into like new cars. But you know, there was literally, if you were an American kid living in the suburbs, you could get Road and Track, Car and Driver, or Automobile. I mean, there was MotorTrend, but it was awful. You would never read MotorTrend back then. It was the worst. Yeah, no. We've come a long way. Yeah. And so I would get all four, and I would never. It's funny, and I asked my mom about this one time. I never wanted to subscribe because I loved going to the bookstore, or, you know, and like actually there was
the airport.
I'm the airport guy.
Always the airport.
There was Crown Books I could ride my bike to, and I used to love just going there and getting the new issues. and I think actually I could only afford to buy like Automobile, but I would read all of them in the store. You know, no one cared.
Right.
So I always, you know, and I actually found. My mom passed away in April, and I was cleaning out like just the garage, and I found like a journal I kept when I was 12, 13, and I actually wrote like a short story about a guy. It's so embarrassing, but he had a GTI, and it was like a really crappy teenage American version of a James Bond hero, but he drove a GTI because I'm sure I was reading in like.
Sounds like my life. I drove a GTI.
Yeah, watching a ton of Bond,
and I'm sure I was reading, you know, Car and Driver in 1987 about how great the GTI, the second gen GTI was, or whatever it was. So I've always just known a lot about cars, and then when I decided to do it, this is going to sound a little pretentious, but I think you have to have a little bit of an ego to really jump into this game. But I just wasn't reading the reviews I wanted. I was looking at new cars. I knew how to write. I knew how to review a product, and I just wasn't seeing what I wanted. A couple places, but I just wasn't seeing it, you know. So I was like, I have something to say, and I felt I could do a better job. Was I crazy? Probably.
Right.
But
it paid off.
It has so far. Yeah. But I jumped in with both feet, and I lucked out. That's the other thing, which is really like I used to write a football blog with some buddies, and we would just write these like ridiculous game summaries, like just. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the site Kissing Susie Colbert, but it was like, nope, even more offensive than that before Kissing Susie Colbert.
Oh my God.
It was just like my best friend was a Vikings fan, I'm a Packers fan, and we would just like mercilessly talk shit about the teams, right? So, I forget where I was going with this, but Sorry about that. But
it's okay.
What was I saying? I was saying Jumping with bulls. Oh, you're right. So I was talking to sadly, he died like 2 months ago, but my best friend, don't do drugs, kids. He was saying like, man, imagine like if we, or he was saying, do you think we could have made it like writing about football professionally? And I was like, oh no, absolutely not. Like the odds of making it are infinitesimal. Like there's no way it would have worked out. And he's like, hey, idiot, I'm actually trying to compliment you. You did it, right? You actually started off writing for some idiot blog. And like
turned it into something.
Yeah, you turned it into. It's like I'm trying to pay you a compliment. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I did. But the odds are against me.
We're Jewish. We're not really good at taking compliments.
He's just never to bring that out. I think he was getting ready to. He knew his time was near.
He was on the way out.
And I think he was like trying to like say something nice before he died. But anyway, that's a whole other subject and depressing. But yeah, it's I got real lucky. I got real lucky.
So we got a question because our generation of motoring enthusiasts doesn't read as many reviews as you probably know.
They watch videos. Sure.
They watch these YouTube videos, and you got the influencers reviewing cars who go to these press events, which I'm sure you've seen plenty of. What is your opinion?
I'll stop you. I haven't. I never watch anything. Yeah.
No, but what's your opinion on people getting their automotive knowledge from these random influencers? Because they didn't put any of the work that you did. They're not the writers.
Sure.
They're just...
Look, I mean, in some way, like it's funny, like, Supercar Blondie, Alex, she's a friend of mine. So, but she literally put something up the other day, and it was she was in a 6x6, AMG 6x6, and she was like pushing...
All the stuff on top,
the air the tires up and down, and like I made a video about that truck whenever it came out, and I pushed those buttons in my video like 100 years ago, and I never thought to put it on Instagram. It was in the video, which now sadly has been taken off YouTube and it's behind a paywall. Subscribe to the MotorTrend app. But she had like 500,000 views.
Right.
Something. So
in a second.
In 1 second.
She has it down to a science, man. Yeah. Like you could say whatever you want about her, but
I mean, but
she's reading a brochure and getting millions.
She's good. I would just say, kids, be wary of anyone who never says anything bad about anything.
Totally.
There's a reason they're not. It's probably because they're being paid not to say something bad about it.
And that's the problem with influencers because they have no reason to say bad things because they want to go to the next event.
Most of the time,
right?
somebody's giving them something to review, or somebody's handing them something to.
Well, that, but also like they wouldn't know how to critically analyze anything. I think in terms of competitive sets, and I always try and stress this to people, where they'll say something like a Civic. Oh, Civic sucks. You should get a McLaren. And it's like, well, hang on. Now, what does the Civic actually compete against? It's like it competes against a Corolla and the Hyundai version of there's a whole bunch of small cars.
Whatever is in that class.
Yeah. And so in that class, the Civic is awesome. Like it outshines everything. And you want to talk about a McLaren, like let's say like 600 LT. It's like, well, all right, now we have to put it up against the stuff he competes against.
Totally.
And so when I think about cars, that's how I think about it. I never think like, I don't like the Civic Type R because it's not as good as a Ferrari. It's like, well, yeah, but
absolutely, $40,000 car.
But on the other hand, I have seen influencers, one in particular, but this. I'm trying to think. I don't want to say the person's name.
You don't have to name names. We can probably figure it out. But
they did like a review of a small Ford, and they reviewed it as if it was a Lamborghini, and it was just an ad for a Ford.
Was it a small Ford that you owned?
No. Well, it was bigger. It was bigger than the one I own. No, but it was just like oh my god, like they just don't care. And the other thing is, and Jethro Bobbington and I talk about this all the time because there's a lot of downward pressure on us just to do commercials for cars.
Totally.
It pays like great. It's
totally.
awesome. And he's always like, we should just do it because nobody fucking cares. Nobody cares anymore with these influencers.
Yeah.
They're bought and paid for and nobody cares.
Because what I was going to say is that there are, obviously with print media kind of going out the door, there are still legitimate journalists and people that are creating legitimate content. They've just kind of had to figure out a different outlet, and like the MotorTrend app, and like you said, it's kind of behind a paywall, but still people can get the type of content they're looking for, which is videos, and it's just easy to ingest. But yeah, I mean, there are legitimate journalists that are reviewing cars and giving people legitimate feedback versus the people that are just influencing purchases of cars by showing them and reviewing them and whatnot. So like with these new people that are just getting cars from companies and reviewing them, like are you for that or against it? Are you for people getting their content from anybody? Do you think like
look, I don't know if it matters so much what I'm for or against. I will say I think it's great that like exciting cars are popular. And I think that keeps cool cars coming. And at the end of the day, I really like cool cars, and I'm not only do I like driving them, I like looking at them, I like thinking about them, I like talking to people about them. Mm-hmm. So the more of that, the better. And I'm not gonna like poo-poo anyone's success if they work really hard. And look, I'll let you know a secret: the really successful influencers, they work their asses off.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
I mean, like that guy, Sebastian, the French guy. Like, dude works. Now, what does he work at? He works at taking pictures of himself in front of cars. I'm not good looking like he is, so no one wants to see that. But like, that dude does not sleep.
Right. It's a full job posting photos.
Yeah, and he's also done like I don't know, 900 videos, and it's like like videos suck to make. It's cool once they're done and people watch them, but like, my God, it's soul sucking and boring to make a video.
You bring up a good point of like having like everybody wants to see new cars and all this stuff. Do you think that the fact that all these influencers and all these people that are getting their hands on cars like immediately after that comes out, do you think that puts pressure on companies to like release new cars more often so that they can have kind of more surprises?
I think companies have a much
bigger game plan,
higher up view. That's the street view. They're looking from up here, so they're like, all right, if we spend $100 million, can we make $200 million? And influencers are a part of that. But remember too, like I'm trying to think, like stuff like McLaren Speedtail, for instance. They're all sold before you've even heard about the car. And what they do is they go to their wealthy ass owners.
Sure.
And these are the people that have 60 cars. Would you like another one, sir? This one,
this one's specialer than that other one.
Yeah. So like, if anything, McLaren letting an influencer see a Speedtail is because maybe somebody who can kind of afford a 570S might, be watching Supercar Blondie on the Speedtail. It's not going to help with Speedtail sales.
Sure.
That's a good point.
So it's going to trickle down into just like excitement of the brand.
Right. And so that's kind of the role influencers serve, and that's why you have Halo products and everything. What I worry about, and we actually see this with Tesla, is I stole this line from Jethro, but it's true, is with the PR people. So the PR people, they're your storytellers, right? Public relations, and so. You'll say like, well, why would I buy, this Lamborghini over this McLaren? And they'll have the answer. If they just let influencers run wild and they're never critical, what the hell do you need a PR person for? The influencers will just talk directly with the marketers and, cut out the middleman. So you're actually, if you just are just only giving cars to people because they're never going to say anything negative, then you're eliminating your own job. You won't be needed soon.
I definitely think influencers are more of a marketing tactic than anything else. I mean, because there's definitely, a clear difference between like a journalist and like an influencer. You know, somebody who's just influencing a brand versus somebody who's journalism.
I'll give you a couple, for instances about why I think, and this is just from my experience, but why I think what I do is actually important.
Well, we want to know like what qualifies somebody to be like a journalist.
I mean,
like why are you the editor in chief and there's the staff editor? Like, you need to know. You said comparables to Honda Civics. Like, I like to think I know a lot about cars, but people always come to me, Lorenzo, what car should I get? I want to get a Subaru Outback. Like, I'm like, to be completely honest, I know a lot about higher end cars, but I don't know like diesel.
Yeah, we do our car of the year and SUV of the year. So I can drive everything.
Yeah,
right. But just a couple examples about why I think like I matter. I'll talk for myself. I remember probably my proudest moment was the 5th gen Camaro. which started out very, very bad and got very, very good. Ended with the Z28, which is still one of the best cars from the last decade.
Badass.
It's just awesome.
I haven't seen how much you love that car.
I love that car. I love that. You got to drive it. If you haven't, and that's the thing. Like my buddy who can afford anything on the planet, basically, Justin, how you doing? He just bought one, and like he won't stop texting me like, I fucking love this car. It's the great. It's my only car I'm gonna keep stock. It's perfect, you know. So, but anyways, way before the Z28, we were doing a Mustang Camaro comparison, and you guys may not remember, but the Camaro had this weird steering wheel that like there was no way to curl your fingers around it.
Yes.
So you had to have your fingers pointing out straight.
Yeah.
And so if you've ever carried cardboard, you know that it's like it wears you out. It makes you're killing you.
You're doing like grip strength.
Even if you're doing that, you're taxing it.
Towel hangs.
Yeah. But so like I drove this car. And
this is why he's doing these exercises.
No.
So he could drive old Camaros.
No, but this is when it was brand new. But I mean, it was about 2012, and I remember I drove from like wherever down Sunset Boulevard to the beach and came back, and I'm like, I feel like I've been carrying cardboard all day. Like my hands are killing me. And so I put a line in the story, and I'm like, how does Dan Ackerman, who at the time was the CEO of General Motors, I'm like, how does he go to sleep at night knowing he's selling the worst steering wheel on the market? And I was like, you know what? That's the guy. He used to sell batteries or Diet Coke. How does Mark Royce, who's now the president of GM, but at the time he was like in charge of products. I think he still is, but he wasn't president. I'm like, forget about Ackerman. How does Mark Royce, purported car guy, go to bed knowing this is true? Magazine hits the newsstands, right? The next day, this is back when Angus McKenzie was editor-in-chief. I see Angus on a phone call. He hangs up. He's like, that was Mark Royce. He's like, tell Johnny we're fixing it. I'm like, rad,
That's
know?
badass.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
And like I was just on a call with Mercedes about the new E-Class, and they're like, you know, blah blah. What do you think? What do you think? And you know, it's really good. The new whatever. It's just refresh, but like it's a huge. They've done a really bad job of explaining why it's a huge refresh, but it's a huge refresh. The cars are just
from
phenomenal.
Like the 2020s?
From the 2017 to the 2021. It's the same car. Every car goes through a mid-cycle
the
refresh.
new facelift is a
whole
new refresh of the whole car?
I mean, again, if you ask them, you're like, mechanically, what did you change? They're like, nothing. We changed the bushings. We reprogrammed the air suspension. But whatever they did, it adds up to a fantastic car. However, they changed the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And so the steering wheel is now covered in these haptic controls.
Yeah,
right? And I'm like, my feedback is if I could force you guys to do an emergency refresh, the volume slidey pad, if you push it even just a little bit, it mutes it. And it's really annoying when you're trying to just like turn something up because you want to hear it and you mute it and you're like, whoa, what just happened? And then and they were like, oh, that's good feedback. So maybe maybe it'll help. I don't know. But and one more, I'll just keep yammering at you. The new Suburban Tahoe has the most sophisticated suspension ever put on a truck. It's air suspension with magnetic ride control. It's freaking brilliant.
Is it portal axles like your dream?
No. Well, portal axles, that's not really suspension. That's
I know.
That's axle. But but there's different modes, and there's a brilliant sport mode on the Suburban. Why would you do it? I don't know, but there is one there. But it's unmarked. It's impossible to find. I stuck one of my colleagues, this guy Miguel Cortina, I stuck him in Tahoe for an hour, and I said, find sport mode. I want you, and this is a guy who reviews cars for a living. He's the editor-in-chief of MotorTrend Espanol. Gets out of the car, he's like, I couldn't find it. And I found it on accident. So when we had a phone call with the chief engineer, because of COVID, you can't do normal launches. Right. Everybody's on the phone. So we had the chief engineer of the Tahoe and like another guy who was a senior engineer. And I'm like, you got to do something. I'm sitting here in a Ford Expedition. It's got a drive mode thing. If you put your right elbow on the armrest and drop your hand, the first thing your hand grabs is a huge knob that says drive mode. Yours is buried and hidden. And they're like, yeah, you're right. You know what? We can change that before the launch. We can put drive mode on.
That is cool.
So that's again, I think that's the difference between a critical journalist and an influencer who's never going to be critical. They're just like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm so excited to be standing next to a car.
That's funny because it leads us kind of to our next point, or kind of skips a little bit, but since we're on the topic of like design and the way that car companies are making these designs and how they get passed, like, obviously with the new M3 and M4 being on the front lines of how the hell did this pass, like how many times you experience like seeing a car and just being like, how many different people did this have to be approved by to then be produced, and it still looks like this, or it still does this? I mean,
all right, well, let me pause you for 1 second.
And I know that you have this big thing about pedestrian standards and how pedestrian standards have changed.
I have a big thing. Europe has a big thing. But I want to pause you real quick. But just final thought on the influencer thing real quick before we jump into design.
Do it.
I'm jealous of how fucking rich they are. Okay, now, design. It's such a great question. That's such a great question. Sometimes when you're working on a project, you sort of not only have blinders on, but your head's in the sand. So like whatever the initial impetus was to have those teeth or nostrils or God knows what that BMW thing is.
I don't know what to call it.
If you just are looking at like sketches and screens and clay models, it's a self-fulfilling feedback loop.
Sure.
Where you just never come up for air. Whatever they were going for, it must have looked really good in the box they were sitting in. Sure. And I used to design websites, and I remember one in particular. We went back to basics. We were looking at like architecture. We were looking at God knows what, everything but good website design. And we like launch it, and it was like, oh God, what do we do? Like the second we come up for air. So I don't know. That's a great question. I will say this though about BMW. So everyone really made fun of the X7 when it launched, right?
Sure.
You look at the X7 now, and by the way, they've taken over LA. They're everywhere.
Looks fantastic.
They look good. That size grille looks good. And if you see a first gen X5, the little kidneys are the size of your fist. They look miniature and wrong.
Yeah.
So like
I think it changes with time, and I think the M4 will get people warm up to it.
I think it was a little leap.
I'm making a sour face for those not watching the video. I think the M4 is a fuck up. I think that the 4 Series, the M440i, has a chance to maybe look okay over time, but the M4 and the M3 are.
We thought the exact opposite.
They're crazy pants.
My friend just got his brother just got the M440, and to tell you the truth, without all the extra like aggressive stuff, I think it looks even worse. I think it just looks like really soft, and just like the fenders. I mean, specifically, like there's so many.
I'm only talking grill. I'm just talking the face.
But I just mean specifically, there are so many things wrong about the design of that car, including the grill. But like, how does this happen, and like, why does it happen so often? Or like,
I don't think something like that happens often. And again,
have you ever had like another car before the M3 or M4 that like sticks out to you right now? That kind of like, how did this pass?
Sure. I mean, there's a zillion throughout history. I mean,
sure.
The Aztec would be one where it was like instantly loathed by anyone with eyes.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of liked when they came out with like the tent thing that would like attach to the back.
You're a psychopath.
I don't think they ever sold a single unit of that.
They did. Yeah. No, they did.
Oh, the tents.
Yeah. They were 15 years ahead of their time. But but again, I want to go back to the rest of the 3 Series design. If you take or 4 Series, if you take that M, or I guess the 3 Series looks the same now. Anyways, if you take the M440i. And you look at the rear next to that new Acura, the
ILX,
the TLX, new one.
It looks very similar.
The same rear end.
Yeah,
it's the same rear end.
And Lexus and the new
similar,
IS.
similar.
Yeah. Just like this.
No, but I mean, if you look at the BMW and the Acura, I mean, they're almost identical from the rear. There's like the rear reflectors on one are horizontal and the other are vertical. So they're good design practices. The guys went to the same schools. They have the same design philosophy, just they were trying something with that front end. I would say that the reason I think that the 4 Series has a shot where the 3 and 4 don't. There's like a little smiley face below the nostrils.
It's endearing.
Which looks like like something off the Angry Birds cartoon. There's something anthropomorphic about it, meaning you can kind of humanize. You see a face. Mm-hmm. I just think that
for the younger viewers, that's what that means.
Anthropomorphic, right? So anthro is man. I don't know. Morphic. It morphs into. I don't know. It just means like
giving human qualities to an inanimate object.
Yeah, thank you. Or to an animal. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the M4 though,
there's so many companies right now that are like, this company is like, I've seen so many articles like such and such company made a front clip to fix the front of the M4. Like so many companies right now are attempting to fix the front end, where I can't imagine a company seeing so many people give this reaction to a car and not do an emergency refresh.
They're not looking. BMW's not looking.
Dude, people are going to buy that car. Like crazy.
They're not listening to us on that. But the other thing, like, maybe I'll give you another one. So I think you were asking, how does this happen? I think like Lexus, like I
drive an IS also. Just
what year?
18.
Oh, so it has that face.
So it has the face, and the fenders don't go over.
Its headlights aren't connected either. It's like,
but I don't hate it. Honestly, I never planned to buy it, but I don't hate driving.
Oh no, they drive great. I'm talking design.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not hang us up with designer.
I think the LC 500 is grotesque looking. I think it's messed up in every way.
Oh really?
Awful.
I think it's freaking awesome.
Everyone
We're gonna have to
make
sure Matt Farah doesn't see this.
Oh, what's Matt gonna do? The car drives great.
He's gonna cry. He loves that car.
I mean, I think he loves how it drives. But I remember we were sitting there. It was car of the year. It was either last year or the year before, and there was an LS. So the big sedan, right? It has that face. It's just, I'm like, and so it was me. So at the time I was like 43, 44, and it was me and like Angus, who's like, in the 60s, and we had Chris Theodore's 60s, Tom Gale, probably in the 70s, but Tom, he designed the original Viper. He actually designed the Diablo, which no one knows about. All the cool ass Chrysler stuff. He was the head of design for Chrysler. He was a board member. And then everyone else was like in their 40s and above. We're looking at this thing and we're gagging ourselves. We're like, really? We cannot believe how ugly the LS is. And then all the kids in their 20s
when you
are
say
like,
the face, you mean like the alien?
Yeah, the grill. The grill and the insane.
It looks like the alien
headlights. With the mascara drips.
Yeah.
And we're all like, and the kids in their like 20s are like, we like it. We think it looks cool. And I'm like, no, it looks like shit. And they're like, nope, it looks cool. And so maybe Lexus is onto something that I just can't see.
Well, Audi did it also. Audi,
Audi's
when they switched from the B5 to the B6,
but
and they made the B6 to the B7, and they made this huge grill.
Yeah, but it's not. It's with the Audi though. The Lexus one is just crazy. It's just like, and they had a command from Mr. Toyota who said, make our cars wild looking. They're boring. Our cars need to be crazy looking. Totally. So they're like, all right, you want crazy? Here, LC. And it's like,
well, that thing eventually kind of became the Supra, that the like whatever the Toyota came out with
I'm not talking about Toyota. I'm talking about Lexus.
Yeah, but when Toyota came out with that prototype, that eventually became the LC instead of the Supra. It was like a much bigger car, and I thought that was
different though. That's Toyota versus. I mean, I also think Toyota design is like, you look at the new Avalon, like, it's wretched. That's like really bad design.
Yeah.
So anyways, so that happens because I don't know, but again, maybe they found a bunch of young kids who are like, we think the Lexus looks cool.
Like, do they run focus groups and stuff? And nobody's like, no.
Hey, I guarantee that those BMWs made it through a lot of focus groups. A lot.
Right. That's true.
I've done some of those like stealth. I've actually been to those focus group things. And what they do is they'll take 3 cars, they'll pull the badges off of them, and they're like, what do you think? And it's like, you could, they probably, for America, they probably had a Lexus, and like an actor with the funny beak, and someone's like, actually, the BMW looks better,
right.
We've won.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
it's like those ghastly Chevy ads.
Yeah,
Like,
which one?
What if I told you this was a Chevy?
Yeah, those are fake, but That's what focus groups are like, and I've actually participated in
the fake focus group Chevy ads?
Yeah, they're much different. They're not like that. What they do is they'll throw you in a room. They'll have 3 white cars.
Do they have like a 2-sided mirror on a bunch of people.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And it's that's interesting. They do have a 2-sided mirror, but they take all the badges off, and you have just white cars, and but they don't talk to you. You just walk around and look, and they give you a clipboard, and you like fill out some questions.
Interesting.
And then at the end, they interview you for 30 minutes, and like just which one looks more premium, which one do you think costs more, which one do you think costs the least. Do you think that this would cost as much as Mercedes-Benz? It's a luxury segment. Whatever it is.
Do they just pick the biggest dinguses they can find on the side of the road?
I have no idea.
Regulars.
I got asked. I think randomly once, and then when I got there, I was like, "What do you do for a living?" And I was like, "I do this," and they're like,
"I'm an automotive."
Get out of here! No. They were like, "Scab, you're important."
Yeah.
So but it's.
Oh, that's when they start treating you like a Yelp reviewer and start giving you like the better treatment.
No, nothing like that. They just ask you more questions.
Gotcha.
And look, I remember one time before the NSX showed up with Acura. This wasn't quite the same thing, but they brought me in just to off. This is 7 years ago. It wasn't even Acura as their agency, but off the record, what do you think of the brand? And I'm like, kill it, just get rid of it. It's meaningless. Like,
wow.
Like it used to mean something. It's got to be a money loser. And I was just straight up like brutal. And I think Acura is still suffering. They're not
How long ago was this?
Probably 7 years ago.
Because I know they're like design director. I'm just friendly with them out here, and they're in the middle of this big rebrand. Right now.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah, good friend of mine. But my point is like I still don't think they know exactly who they are.
Right.
They need to get there. And it's true for a lot of companies. And people forget like Acura and Lexus and Infiniti, they don't exist because Japanese car companies were like, you know what we want to do? Luxury. They exist because in 81, Japan was destroying Detroit. Reagan had just got elected, and I can't remember the name of the law, but it's like this voluntary sales cap. So the Japanese brands, basically at gunpoint agreed they would only sell X number of cars a year in the U.S. And so they said, you know what? Fuck them. If we can only sell this many cars, we're going to sell some expensive cars with huge profit margins. And so then in 84 or 5, Acura showed up, and then Lexus and Infiniti followed.
Wow.
So it's not like Mercedes where they have this like long tradition of like needing to build luxury cars because that's all they do. You have, Toyota, this volume car juggernaut. Like nobody can produce cars at cost with the reliability of Toyota. No one can do it. That's why everybody in the 90s switched to Toyota manufacturing method. They have to produce a luxury brand. In Japan, Lexuses are below Toyotas.
Really?
There's way more luxurious Toyotas. So it's like a hassle almost for these brands. So they just aren't sure what they want to be.
Interesting.
It's interesting, like what now you're seeing that with Genesis.
Yeah.
Like kind of coming from Hyundai and them having kind of a sort of lack of identity, but now they're trying to define an identity right now.
They're hiring really experienced, world-class designers, and Peter Schreier.
And it shows for sure.
Yeah. They're kicking ass with their design. They got to work on their ride handling a little bit, but their designs.
They still got a couple extra little fake vents and a couple extra
fake vents. Everyone has fake vents, and fake vents are designed. It's something that on a huge flat piece of metal.
Have we come to accept fake vents now, like fake brake vents and fake
it's so funny. Like I was at the Peterson Museum, and they have a new supercar exhibit. I got a private tour.
We must go.
We walk.
You gotta go.
I live a block away.
So. When it reopens, yeah. But so my Schaefer, Capital Sunset, and I, we got a private tour of it, and we were looking at what car is this? The Miura, the Lamborghini Miura. Fake tailpipes. The Miura has fake tailpipes. The Porsche 959 has fake tailpipes. They all do.
Really?
And everyone
back then.
Yeah, but the internet's so funny.
World shattered. He loves the 959.
Yeah, it's the best car ever made. Fake tailpipes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just a design. It's a design cue.
I feel you. Now it's so much worse.
No, it's not. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same.
But it's
look
like
at a mirror.
It's like stupidly obvious. Like with the SQ5 and stuff, where it's just like a space, but there's plastic that's not even holes anymore. They're just plastic and blocked off.
Look at the mirror. The mirror's pipes end.
Wow, I'm doing that next time.
3 inches later, there's like tailpipes that aren't connected to anything.
All right, I'm going to change gears here.
Change gears.
Let's go into best driver's car because that's what I want to talk about.
Okay, I can't tell you who won, but we just finished our 2020 COVID edition of Best Drivers.
Woo!
So instead of taking place in July or June, we had to move it to, what's this, October.
Yeah.
What day is it today?
Yeah,
October.
I mean, what is it?
Whatever.
I don't know what day it is. 2020 is a bunch of crap.
We're going to skip 2020.
So we only had 7 cars. And
is that because of COVID, or is that because you couldn't get anything that was?
It's a mix. It mostly COVID. We were down to 5 judges. We had to go to Laguna Seca because it wouldn't be best driver's car without Laguna Seca. A lot of people on staff, and I was iffy, but they didn't want to go on the road. They didn't want to risk being in a hotel where they get COVID. They didn't want to, just move around. And I can't believe it. So we had 5 judges, and one of them was Randy Post. So we were just down on manpower, and then we had problems like we did World's Greatest Drag Race. It's going to be very different this year. We had to shoot it at a proving ground because we're not allowed on an Air Force base anymore because of COVID.
Right.
We were allowed to bring 20 people total to shoot a video. That really screwed us up, So it was a hard year. It was a hard year. Now the cars were phenomenal. We had the only one I regret that we didn't have, and it was just a miscommunication. The 765 when we initially.
I asked about that. I thought maybe it was a later.
So here's what happened. I'll tell you exactly what happened. Best driver's car takes place in June or July. I forget. It depends on the year, right? So we said, hey, we need it for June, and the car came out in October, and they're like, it won't be ready. Then when we moved the dates, we forgot to re-ask because we'd already written it off, not available. And then McLaren's like, hey, how come you don't have the 765? And we're like,
but isn't that a 2021 car?
Well, what he was saying is that it's still
years.
Out. It's 2021, but it released in October officially. So it was by the time Best Driver's
meaning it's just physically not available.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then there was stuff like the RS6, which before COVID was supposed to show up in September, and just because of COVID delays, which is hitting supply chains around the world like crazy, it's just they're not in the U.S. yet. There just aren't any U.S. spec cars yet. So we didn't have an RS6.
So another question for you: Why should have been there? Why a Cayenne GTS and not a Taycan Turbo S?
Here's why. Because we were supposed to have 12 cars, right? This is our initial plan, and so we do the last 2 years. We've done a super SUV as one of the 12 contenders, and it's great. It's fine. In fact, the Urus came in like 7th or 8th.
Right.
The Alfa Stelvio Quadrifoglio came in like 6th or 7th. They're great. They totally work.
Yeah. He pronounces it correctly.
What?
Quadrifoglio.
Quadrifoglio.
He says Quadrifoglio.
No, you say it like Quattro. You don't even.
Whatever.
It can be done.
Yeah, when he says it to me, it sounds like he's speaking Italian, and I don't speak Italian, so I don't know what he's saying.
Quadrifoglio. Anyways, so we did our super SUV compare, and we had the Cayenne, and we had the X6M competition, and we had the AMG GLE 63S, and we had the X3M comp, and we had the Maserati Levante Trofeo, and the Cayenne decimated the field, just destroyed everybody. It wasn't even. There was no battle for first place. There was a battle.
It was a slaughter
for second. But there was absolutely, it was without question, the Cayenne was head and shoulders above everything. And then we ran it in the print magazine, and we said, and the Cayenne wins, and it's going to Best Driver's Car. So then Best Driver's Car gets all messed up, and we're like, we kind of got to honor what we said in print. Should we have replaced it with a 765? Oh, God, yes. But we didn't because it just didn't happen. The Taycan probably wouldn't have done as well as the Cayenne. The Cayenne is just rad.
Is the GTS better than the Turbo?
No, Turbo's better.
We
had a Turbo. We had the Cayenne Turbo Coupe.
I thought it was a GTS.
No. We had the Turbo. No.
Oh, okay. That was like
this is best driver's car.
Right. I was like, this is a Mickey Mouse driver's car.
Medium. This.
Okay.
Not medium car. Yeah.
Okay.
No, but it's just I don't know what they did. I mean, I know what they did. They took an Urus and put a Porsche body on it. But it's just awesome. It's incredible.
It definitely, that thing moves.
And look, is it silly when you have 7 cars that one of them be an SUV? Yeah. Is it kind of fun when you have 12? It's fine when you have 12.
Right. Absolutely.
So we got COVID. Just the fact that we pulled off best driver's car is a miracle. So.
Right. Do you still get very excited and giddy about driver's car?
Yeah, I get excited about truck of the year. I love cars.
Is that your favorite event that you guys do?
Anytime you can make a jump picture is like...
Truck of the year is special. Truck of the year, a lot of the staff hates it, and they don't like, because it's like you're towing shit. I love it because it takes the longest, and you get to spend the most time really learning the vehicles, and it's always the smallest field. Although this year, best driver's car was smaller. But that said, I mean, I got to do 28 laps of Laguna Seca this year, so.
That's pretty good. That's sick.
That is good.
Yeah. So
in trucks?
No, for best driver's car. No, for best driver's car. No, I drove the Corvette, the GT500. We had the GT4. We had the Huracan Evo. We had the Ferrari F8 Tributo. We had that Cayenne, and maybe that's it. But it was an awesome year.
Question from someone who drives all these cars all the time. You get the Evo.
Yeah.
Why not Evo rear-wheel drive? Does the rear-wheel drive not drive as well as the four-wheel drive?
I'll say this: when we invited Lamborghini, we didn't know they were. I mean, we knew they were doing a rear-wheel drive, but they launched the rear-wheel drive car a week before best driver's car. But it wouldn't have been available. It just wouldn't have been available. But it does make less power.
It makes less power. Won't have as good of a lap time. But I personally think I like the design, and I think I like the idea of rear-wheel drive.
Hey, what I would have loved to do is drive both of them back to back, same road, same day, and see which one's actually better.
Totally.
Because I remember, driving the last gen, the rear wheel drive was cool, but it wasn't as good as the regular one. So yeah, why didn't we have this? Lots of, But I think it was a good mix of cars, and it was jumbled up. I mean, with the exception of the Cayenne, almost all of them could have been first place.
Interesting. When will
the Cayenne, by the way, could be way up there. I mean,
gotcha. When will that?
Week after Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a prediction. You don't have to say anything.
Okay.
The F8 or the GT4. I've never driven the F8. Okay. The GT4 is possibly my favorite car ever.
Really?
I love that car. That and the GT350R.
Cody, prediction.
I don't want to even give my prediction.
I'm looking at it, and I've driven a lot of those cars in that lineup, and the F8 is a sharp. If it's anything like a 488, which won you guys in the past, thing's fast as hell, man. If it's anything like a Pista,
it's nutty.
I think we just saw the one that you had, the Fiorano.
Russell Fiorano with the beige interior with a Detroit plate. Didn't you have that as a?
It was a New Jersey plate.
I had the one that was Micah. It had the craziest name. It was.
This one was a super dark red with a tan interior. It almost looked.
Could have been that one, but the color's like. Rosso Zatti Mica or something. It's a crazy color.
I think that's
what
it was.
It's a dark red that's almost purple and almost brown.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I had that one just for like a week, but the one we had for best driver's car was a blue one.
Gotcha.
So yeah, look, I mean those are good cars. But again, like, have you driven a GT500? Have you driven the mid-engine Corvette? Like, have you driven the Evo? By the way, the Huracan Evo.
I haven't driven the Evo.
I was gonna say I think the Evo might win over the F8, honestly, because I think that the Lamborghini V10 is just better than the Ferrari V8.
It is, but then you start thinking about it. That's 631 horsepower. The Turbo S, we didn't even mention that. We had a green.
The Turbo S is like
641 horse.
Ultimate sleeper, ultimate.
But then 700 and whatever, 10, 11 horsepower for the Ferrari, 760 for the Mustang, and it puts it down. And it has the best brakes of any car there.
Yeah, and it works.
Yeah, it drives. My God, how did Ford pull off this miracle?
Totally.
And then, though, hang on. The Cayman, like the GT4, like, boy, that's a real sports car.
It's an honest sports car.
It's a real sports car.
I'm kind of a manual douchebag. I like
it.
Yeah.
It was the only manual we had.
Yeah. See, that's special, though, especially when talking about best driver's car. But
but then also the Corvette, I mean, like wow, like wow,
what the Z06 though, that thing is going to be bananas
when it comes out. But I mean, this is out now, and like we talk about like putting the power down. So yeah, that GT500, which we know because we got black flag for going over 107 decibels at Laguna Seca.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that'll happen. What is it, 98 right now, or not? What's the decibel limit?
3, 5, whatever.
That's such a joke.
It's crazy.
They ruined Laguna Seca with that.
Well, there's ways around it. But anyways, we
got black flag. The special days.
We got black flag for 107. But 760 horsepower, 625 pound-feet of torque, and it does a quarter mile, 11.3. Corvette, 11.1. So
GT4, there's no way. They didn't fix the gearing as much as they should have.
But they don't need to, though. They don't need. It's not even an issue. It's not even, if you drive that new one, not even an issue.
Really, the whole two gear,
not even an issue. If you want to nitpick a car, they could have fixed it, but not an issue. The last one, the experience was ruined, and really the last one, the problem was the understeer. It had crazy mid-corner understeer, which nobody wanted to talk about because it was such a special Porsche, and everyone's like a Porsche nerd, and they want to kiss Porsches at. They fixed that. It's actually a more neutral car. It still has a little bit of mid-corner understeer, which is okay. I think entry understeer is better.
Yeah.
But it's cool. But like, what a raw car, I mean, just like, that was one car, I had it for about a week, and I was going up and down Angeles Crest every day. Not every day, but a lot with cars.
As you do.
And I just kept going back to that GT4. I probably went up 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know if I could be quicker in any car. I probably actually could, but in my head, by my third run, I'm like, I'm just flying. I'm at my limit. And that's the thing, like, a car like the Evo or the F8, like, are you ever going to really get to a limit, like, on the road in a narrow one lane? Probably not.
No way,
But in the GT4, man, you could get to your limit, or at least, maybe even the car's limit, maybe.
So I think we also wanted to ask you, because on Instagram you're always posting your driveway and all these cars. How do you get to driving all these cars? Like, how does that happen? Also with your own cars that you have, how do you make time to drive?
How do you have the time to drive all the cars that you get? What else
do I do?
Well, do you ever
what else am I gonna do?
Well,
that's a good point.
So we have a couple of points. Like, you do own your own cars.
Yeah, I have some cars.
So but you also just get a ton of press cars. So do you ever feel like, a couple things, like, do you ever feel like you're not giving your own cars the love that they need, or driving them enough? I mean, I know you have an all-road, and I'm a wagon guy, so like, do you ever feel like
what I feel like.
You don't give enough love to your cars?
What I feel like is I don't give enough financial love to my poor little Ford, because it's about to hit 40,000 miles. I have a Fiesta ST, and I can just feel a $5,000 check coming out of my pocket.
Oh, no.
I love that car more than life itself. Ford build quality back then, 2014, is very poor, and I could just feel everything's about to let go.
Right,
it's going to be.
When was Ford build quality fantastic?
They seem pretty good, except for this car. This car's had a hard life. It's also tuned, so when cars are tuned, you're doing a duty cycle that they never tested for.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I just blew an engine.
Yeah. So I can't really fault Ford. But that said, when you hit the start button, it goes for about 30 seconds. I have no idea what it is, and it's like a bomb's
about turning over.
No, it starts, and it's just like there's just this noise coming out of the air vent, like
get out of the vehicle.
And I assumed it was the start button, but then sometimes if you really move the fan around, it starts doing that. So it could be like a fan control. I don't know what it is.
Or the AC.
It sounds expensive. Or something. Whatever it is. It sounds expensive. Yeah.
Well, like,
it's starting to overheat more. So it's like
that seems to be like your fun car, that Focus ST, and you just got a Giulia. Is it a Quadrifoglio?
No. We had the all-road. We had an all-road, and the lease was up, and so we turned it back in, and then. Just COVID, no one's going anywhere. So I'm like,
so you decided against it?
Well, what I tried to do was I wanted to buy a Giulia. I couldn't find the one I wanted.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we'll find you one. I'm like, let me just build the one I want.
Yeah.
And they're like, the factory's backed up, COVID, da-da-da. I'm like, I don't care. Let me actually build the one I want. And they're like, fine. So it's supposed to show up, I don't know, December, January. I heard it was the piece of paper that says build this car exists.
Gotcha.
So when it shows up, I'll get it. But it's a Giulia TI with a bunch of options. It's like blue with red leather and yellow calipers, and it's primary color fest.
Kind of like, but what I'm getting at is like, do you, as a person that is constantly driving the best of the best cars and is constantly always, a new car comes out, you get to drive it, you get to have a ton of fun in it, like, do you not feel as much of a drive to actually purchase a car like that? Like, do you ever feel like, I don't need a Pista because I'm gonna drive a Pista, and then when the new one comes out, I'm gonna get it next time.
If I could afford a 720S, I'd have a 720S. I can't afford it.
That's fair.
I love that car to death. I can't afford it. For the Alpha that we're getting, it's my wife's car, to be honest. Right now she's driving the Ford around, and I drive around. I have a long-term Mercedes GLE 450, I think it is.
You own that one?
No. We get long-term cars.
Oh, that's the long-term.
Yeah. So I mostly drive that or another. I usually have a press car.
The bouncer.
The bouncer. Yeah.
That thing is.
That's my wife's car. So like, could I have got a Quadro? Like, I could probably swing that, but like and when I was thinking about, do I get the Quadrifoglio? I was like, hey, you had this Audi for 3 years, this all-road. Did you ever put it in sport mode? And she's like, there's a sport mode? So it's like, there's no need for a Quadrifoglio in my family.
Right.
I would, like if I made, an extra $50,000 a year, like, yeah, sure. Why not spend another $300 a month on a car? But it's a lease. I have a business. It's a business write-off to lease the car. But I'm also a firm believer in like, hey, put your money where your mouth is. Because I won't name the publication, but there's a big car magazine out of Detroit where whenever they review a 911, they all rag on it because it's so expensive, and they all own 911s. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we named the Alpha our car of the year, not just the Quadrifoglio, the whole product lineup. And I'm buying one because I believe in it. It's a really good car.
Right.
The whole Giulia lineup,
or
Giulia and Stelvio.
Not Stelvio.
Just the whole Giulia.
Giulia
Sport,
was the
TI,
2019 MotorTrend car of the year, I think.
Right.
Awesome. It's a fantastic car.
One of
I just drove that car. And
either the best driving or second best driving sedan ever made.
As far as driving, it's like impeccable. There's nothing in the market that really drives like that. As far as interior,
I was gonna say the big AMG GT.
Yeah,
four-door,
sure. AMG,
but that's the price point.
AMG stuff. But when I'm talking about like just like the TI, something like that, you're not getting that experience out of a C300.
Nope,
maybe a 340i, but I've heard that's not engaging anymore.
No,
but
not even close.
But what I think that Alpha did is they put a lot into the driving experience, and they took a little bit out of the interior. Interior's like a little Mazda,
they've improved it for 20. They've improved it. I think the one I'm getting is actually a 21. So wireless phone charger, the red leather. You can't get a red leather in anything. It's a no-cost option to get red leather, so I think the
how Italian is that?
It's awesome. Red leather. What's that?
I said my Lexus has red leather.
Yeah, okay.
It's great, though.
Yeah,
I love it. The red leather is the move.
We want to talk about, because we just went to Cars and Cove this morning.
Yes.
And we saw Lucid.
Yeah.
They had the Dream Edition there.
Yeah.
And you went and saw it. You wanted the first to see it. What is
I'll put my Lucid mask on.
There you go.
How do you like that car? How do you think it's going to do?
It's cool. I think it's going to do great. I think that, the story of Lucid is that they're these ruthless innovators. And I think they're having a hard time getting that story out because people can't get past that the car has 1,080 horsepower.
Yeah.
Well,
that is bananas.
Why does it have 1,080 horsepower and have over a 500-mile range? Because it's efficient.
Yeah.
Because they shrank everything. How are they able to shrink all the motors and everything? Efficiency.
It's this big. It's like the size of a shoebox. Their engine.
It's smoller than that. That's like two. No, it's tiny.
Was it the dual motor that they showed me or something?
The dual motor is about that big.
They showed me one, and it was just.
But it's all efficiency,
because they come from like an industrial background, right? So
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure the guy at the dealership said that their technology is like not their first. It's their first car, but like their electronic drivetrain technology has been used for industrial purposes and other industrial vehicles.
I don't know about that. I know they've been making batteries silently for Formula E for a couple seasons.
Yeah, that too.
But they also they've moved to a 900 volt system. So like Porsche is 800 volt. That new Hummer EV is going to be 800 volt. These guys, when the car, that's the thing. They got to sell these freaking cars. But, 900 volts. So it charges faster. It's more efficient to get the electricity in. It's more efficient to get it out. So that stuff is spectacular. But then the stuff that they'll never be able to really tell the story properly. But like, okay, if you look at that car, there's almost no opening in the front. In a big battery pack like that, you got to cool it. So what do they have? Well, just like all other cars, they have some kind of radiator, right? Mm-hmm. The little tiny opening, but it has this crazy like vortex generator. And they said they were looking at like conventional cars and radiators. And so even, you have the radiator is a big rectangle, but the air hits it because of the way grills work in like basically a circle. So you're only using about 50% of the radiator on any car. So their little vortex generator from a much smaller opening hits 100% of the radiator. So it's just, it cools more efficiently. Their headlights, the guy talked to me about their headlights for 20 minutes, but their headlights are so good, they actually have to like unfocus them because at night, because they're so sharp, the contrast and the shadows they create would freak you out. So they actually have to unfocus their headlights, where every other car manufacturer is focusing their headlights.
They're putting laser headlights in the R8.
But beyond that,
just over-engineering everything.
Innovation for the sake. This is a great story. So I'm sitting there. I can't remember the guy's name. He's their head of battery technology. He's a German guy.
I spoke to a guy Michael there, but
no, this is.
It doesn't sound
nicest guy
German enough.
Michael.
Michael.
Oh God, if I could pull. Anyways, he's in the article I wrote, but I'm sitting there, and so this is a trick I learned from my old boss Angus McKenzie. Which, if you notice a guy in the car industry has a cool watch, say like, what kind of a watch is Lucid? And he had a really nice like IWC on, and he goes, wir sind. Sin. And I go, oh yeah? He goes, yes, we just innovate for the sake of innovation. And I was like,
That's awesome.
I'm wearing a Sin. So like, I get that. I like that.
That's very
cool. So I think Lucid's going to really do some cool stuff. And like, they're launching with an expensive car, but there will be a single motor version of that car, which by the way, could make like 600 horsepower.
Right.
I'd say expensive is pretty, at this point right now with that market, is relative. I don't think it's like absorbently like ridiculous.
No, it's not crazy. And like, by the way, do people buy $170,000 4-door sedan? Yeah,
exactly.
So
like where we are right now, there's going to be plenty.
And that's the Dream Edition, which means the launch edition. So that's it's 170. I think they're simultaneously going to have just the regular dual motor, which would be like 130. Single motor would be 70, 80, and then eventually they all want to get to a $25,000 electric car. That's the goal. And how do you get there? The cost of batteries goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And so
totally.
So
we're talking about Lucid innovating just for innovation.
Yeah.
Where do you see car companies like Ferrari and Lamborghini going? Because the SF90's coming out. That's kind of all Ferrari has, and the Scion. Lamborghini Scion's the hybrid.
Scion.
But like that's where are those companies going?
Well, Volkswagen's trying to ditch all their, Lambo and Bugatti and that kind of stuff.
Bugatti maybe, not Lambo. But okay, so a couple of weeks ago, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, said took the not so bold position that by 2035 we won't be able to buy an internal combustion car in California. And everybody, of course, started, they got really sad and they started ripping their clothes and like, how could he do this? And I'm sitting there going like, I think it's really cute. You feel you'll be able to buy a gas-powered car in 15 years. I just think it's going away because the second, this is really nerdy, but the second the cost of a kilowatt hour for a battery falls below $100, it's cheaper to build an electric car than it is to build a gas-powered car.
Right.
So in other words, like an electric Corolla will actually, forget about federal credits and all that nonsense, it'll be cheaper for the manufacturer to build an electric Corolla than it will be a gas-powered Corolla.
Right.
So, if you would have said by 2025, that would be a bold statement. That would actually change something. But the market's just going to do away with internal combustion because why would you? What's the advantage?
Do you think manufacturers will continue to make If 911.
If gas-powered cars exist, it'll be stuff like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. It'll be on the extremely high end where the sound of the engine really matters. You know, the performance, like, you know, I went around Laguna Seca in a Lucid. Like, let me tell you, like, you got nothing to worry about in terms of performance.
Right.
We went through turn 5. This is, again, 1,080 horsepower car that weighs 5,000 pounds. We went through turn 5 and up to 6. By the way, right past the sound booth and
inside.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, it's all over. Like, there's no reason for internal combustion to even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like, because this thing just rocked. You know, I was just shocked at how quickly. And I've gone around that corner, sitting next to Randy Pope, sitting next to David Donahue, like real good race car drivers. People so good, people pay them to race. You know,
absolutely.
That's something that, you know, like you might think some guy's fast or some guy says he's fast, but until somebody's actually said, "I'm going to pay you to come to work every week and drive my car," they're not actually fast.
What did those guys have to say about it? Like Randy and
about electric cars?
About like Lucid specifically?
I don't know. I mean, I know Randy. You know, he did the Pikes Peak and the Model 3. He loved it until he crashed, and then even after he crashed, he still loved it. And then in limp mode, the thing still like came in second in its class. So yeah, awesome. No, they love it. You know, they love driving fast cars. And, man, these electric cars are freaking fast.
That's true.
And Lucid's going to have this tri-motor car, which is, you know, on 285 section rear street tires, did a 9.2 second quarter mile.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Scheisse.
And
that thing was raced out though. Like that, there was no interior in that car.
Yeah, but they have ballast in it.
Got it.
Yeah. So, but now they have it on 325 section rears on like Trofeos and, you know, fatter fronts. So like, I mean, that might be an 8-second production car. You know what I mean? Like
that is crazy.
It's just nuts. It's just absolutely nuts.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I really like what they've done with like the design schemes and how they develop like the themes of the car's design. Like I'm like just a big design nut, so like
super cool. Derek Jenkins.
Yeah. So just like little things, as something as small as the back seats and the front seats are dark and the back seats are light, so that it doesn't feel like claustrophobic.
I do like that.
Well, the idea is right. So the front of the car is a cockpit. You're in a fighter jet. In the rear, you
want to relax.
You're in Barcelona and
it feels more open. And also the way that they set up these like the specs, it's not just like here's a flap of leather, here's a flap of wood, here's a flap of metal. Like it's like here's a pinch of sand and like a stick that we got, and then it matches this piece of bark, and then we laid the cow's fur and the blood, and like it's just they have these vignettes of these themes that they've created in such detail.
What I like is, so Derek, you know, he went to Art Center. He's a Californian. So the 5 different interiors they have like Santa Monica Sunset.
Yeah, exactly, like, and they're all named after. That's what the Dream Edition was, the Santa Monica.
Yeah, and they have a Santa Cruz. But the idea is, this is what light looks like in Santa Monica at 6 p.m. You know.
Yeah, and like the dark ones was like nighttime.
Yeah,
and, like, it was,
and so as a Californian, I think I you know, as a proud Californian, let me reemphasize that. I love that. I love, you know, and you know
they're built here too.
They are. Well, they're going to be built in Arizona.
Yeah.
The factory's in Arizona. The headquarters is up in this weird town called Newark, but it's near San Jose. But like, you know, Detroit, once in a while they try and do like the Detroit thing, but Detroit is kind of one note, right? It's a gritty urban destination. That's you know, if you're going to put a positive spin on the city of Detroit, that's what it's got. They never really have any Michigan pride. Michigan's a pretty nice state, especially if you like shooting big animals. It's great, you know. But what the cool thing about California is, it's like, you know, it's a global destination. We have, you know, we have Death Valley to you know, the largest trees in the history of the universe, right? Like in one state. So it's you know, again, I'm just a very proud Californian. There is a ton of physical beauty here. And what Lucid's doing, and again, I don't work for them, they don't pay me or anything, but I think it's awesome that they're trying to capture this. I really do.
No,
that's great design.
That is great.
That's innovating for the sake of innovation.
Yeah,
whether it's creating new technologies or creating a different way to look at how you how you stylize an interior, or how you design. Like,
it's something new. And Derek, the designer, you know, he lives in Malibu. He actually flies up for the week and works up there and flies home because he loves living in Malibu. He's at Cars and COVID every week. He's got that crazy carbon fiber dune buggy, that VW-based dune buggy.
Oh, no way! Wait, the Manx?
It's like a Manx.
The one, the street Manx with black with the red and the tires.
I gotta say hi to him.
I've taken so many pictures of that.
Derek's awesome. And so, like, he's
like PCH Manx or something.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, he's a real car dude, you know. And this is what he's doing. So,
interesting.
So he's the designer.
Yeah, he's vice president of design for both interior and exterior and everything. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We're talking a lot as you do on a podcast. Let's go. It is a podcast. We're running out of time. The camera's going to run out of battery.
Oh.
But we have. I have one last question I want to ask you.
You want to go off the shoot off, or do you want to do what this question?
Two more questions. You have the E63 wagon.
I do.
Hell yeah!
You have the You've driven the RS6.
Yeah.
Which one do you prefer?
I mean, come on.
We fight about this all the time.
Come on, so, that's a valid question.
It's a valid question, but I'll give you a much more valid answer.
Come on, like the answer was obvious.
Well, no. The answer is not obvious because until you, and this is again something maybe journalist versus influencer, until you drive the same cars on the same road back to back on the same day, I don't know which one's better. I would suspect that the E63 will drive better because it's a refresh. So they've had 4 years to goof around with the car, and now they've relaunched it. Audis are also, at the end of the day, no matter what you say, they're front wheel drive based. You know, it's an all wheel drive car, and it can shoot a lot of power to the rear end. But just when I say front wheel drive based, that's how the engine sits in front of the firewall. You know, even though it has a north-south transmission.
Yeah, but even though they're known for their Quattro four-wheel drive stuff, it's still like...
Well, again...
the engine sits far in
front of the position of the engine.
Yeah, you know, again, Quattro's great in a straight line. Quattro, when you're going left to right, the way they do it, meaning that the engine's kind of more in front of the front axles than it is in the E63. You probably are going to get to, understeer more. Again, R6 very nice. E63 is great. I think you got to throw the what's it called? Panamera Sport Turismo turbo in there.
Of course.
Yeah.
The E-hybrid.
And that one. No, that one. See, the problem with that is that adds like 500 pounds to an already heavy car.
Yeah.
That's over 500. It's like 5,200 pounds. I think that you just dismiss that one. No, the new, they just released it. I just drove it. It's like 620 horsepower. Unbelievable. So that might be the best one.
Right.
Yeah, for
sure.
It's
a 4-door 918 at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I heard if you tune the E-hybrid, then that becomes basically like a 918 because you can get like 9,000 horsepower out of it.
Ridiculous.
Sure, yeah.
But because the electric, but yeah, for sure. The Turbo S is insane.
But what we got to do is get all three together and then see what's what.
Well, I'd like to see a wagon shootout.
We'll check that game.
We're
doing it?
Perfect.
I'm hosting my wagon show next weekend or the weekend after election, Wagon Jam. And obviously because of my wagon, but I'm trying to get as many wagons together.
Well, I won't have the E63.
Yeah, I knew that. But I mean, I took a look at the E63. I think it looks fantastic.
It's cool.
From the headlights back, or from the back of the headlights back, I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I think what they did with like the ridges around the rear exhaust to make it more like rocket ship like the Carrera GT has those like ridges. I think that's sick. The rims have this cool like wall around them. And I like the steering wheel minus the haptic touch stuff. I think that they opened it up and cleaned it up a little bit.
It's better than the standard E-Class new steering wheel, which looks like
you like the old
chip or something. Yeah, it's too busy, too much going on.
But I'm not a huge fan of the front clip. To tell you the truth, I think it's kind of like went from being a really mature looking car to this made it look a little bit more like a C-Class, and it made it a little bit younger looking in the front, where it used to be a little bit more.
It's the least
gentlemanly,
stealthy part of the car for sure, because it's really not aggressive, except for
it's
the tailpipe.
Not very aggressive either.
The camber of the front camera of the car is nuts.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I mean, look, I think it looks fine. It's not. It looks like a station wagon. It's not. That's where the RS6 really shines. It's freaking killer looking.
Yeah,
I mean,
insane.
it's the best looking, like hands down. I don't need to drive them all on the same day to tell you that.
There's a blue one here in Santa Monica Audi, and we should go see it after.
And the Nogaro blue, like exclusive.
No, like a midnight blue, which I just
they're just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they're insane looking.
Yeah.
I was in Italy 3 months ago, and they're everywhere.
They're
everywhere.
They're everywhere,
and it's so cool. Like just seeing a Nardo Gray RS6 drive by, you're like, I just dropped my gelato.
Yeah. But they also have like all the other good RS6s and the V10
Yeah,
RS6s.
it's true. Yeah, I see those all the time.
All right, so to finish it up, last quick round of questions where I've seen on your Instagram a lot of times people do like this or that, and you have great answers. So we
Can I write them?
We did a couple of these. Yeah, sure. We'll post them in text over.
Okay, cool.
But I'll start it off, and then you can let it rip. We'll go back to back. So 930 or Testarossa?
Oh, Testarossa. I've driven both Testarossa by a lot. I mean, 930s are cool. Old Porsches are cool. It's better. 512 TR.
Yeah. 512 TR.
I can't believe how good that thing actually is.
Interesting. I gotta get back.
I was gonna say the Testarossa compared to the 512 TR is
so I should drive like a first year Testarossa. I recently drove a 930, and it's just so funny how like people are like, oh, it's the Widowmaker. Like, hold on to your hat. It's like it's 280 horsepower.
It's like wrestling a bear, man.
No,
driving that thing.
Really
it's
not.
Like,
it's
like Magnus's 935 thing that he has. I asked him about it. He's like, it's all show, no go.
No, that car's not a turbo. That's just a regular. It's a body kit.
Yeah, for sure. So he's like, it's got nothing in it.
All right, we got to be quick. 997 GT2 or 996 GT2.
996. I like 996.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Those are my.
They just look cool. Also, 996 GT2 is like pretty mental. Yeah,
it's like the most fun.
I mean, 997 GT2 is awesome. I mean,
that's another Widowmaker right there.
That's a Widowmaker. That's a Widowmaker.
Yeah, the 996.
The next question, I guess we already asked, the E63 wagon, the RS6 Avant. You said,
to be determined.
To be determined. Fair enough.
You got to drive them. People, this is what people don't get. This is why. Arguing on the internet.
Well, we need you to drive them and tell us about them because everybody else can't just be like, no, I want to drive an RS6 and an E63 today. You got to drive the cars.
Interesting, absolutely.
Well, then the next one, same engine, right? F8 Tributo or 48 Pista?
I never drove the damn Pista.
You never drove the Pista?
Ferrari.
You were right. He never drove the Pista.
Ferrari has this. They're hot and cold with me. Sometimes they love me. Sometimes they hate me. And so. During Pista times...
Is it all depending on the last review you did?
Yeah. The Pista times, they were pissed. No, you know what it was? I'll tell you. We did, Jester and I did a video. We did the 812 Superfast, which is like, fucking love that car. What?
Bro,
that's right.
The GTS is like the best.
The 812 is just, I can't even say enough good things about it.
Totally.
And we did it against Hellcat Red Eye, because they both made about 800 horsepower, right? And it was tongue-in-cheek. Like, obviously, the Ferrari's better, right? And in the article, I wrote it. I was like, there's just nothing on earth as good as the 812. It's just the greatest thing in the whole world.
It's so good.
But the cover of the magazine, we were doing a burnout, and the smoke was obscuring the Ferrari. Ferrari didn't let me drive a Pista. They were mad.
No way.
Yep. They were like, they were like, I can't believe you did this. So I never
read the article. Ferrari,
that is hilarious.
Yeah, so again, they're hot. I got F8s coming out of my ears.
Right,
they like me. Sometimes they're cold. So I don't know.
Interesting. All right, last one.
No,
Lancia.
Two more.
But we don't.
No, what do we do?
I was gonna say Lancia 037 or Audi Quattro.
Ooh, you mean the Sport Quattro?
Or just to ask that. Yes, the 037 of the Audi Sport Quattro, not the Year Q.
I've never driven that Lancia. Boy, that's tough. I did drive. Paul Zuckerman has the Sport Quattro. That's so cool. Drives just like a 2006 STI, which is for a car from 1986 is amazing.
That's badass.
Yeah, I love that.
God, I don't know.
Because the 037 is so.
I have S1 models all over my house, by the way.
I mean,
the 037 is so cool looking.
But so's the Audi, and the Audi story behind it is so nuts, and they like shorten the wheelbase and
make a choice.
I got to go with the Audi, only because I've driven it. Got to go with the Audi. Yeah. But that launch is so cool.
It is so good. The little ducktail on the back.
Ask this one.
Okay.
Which one?
Ask this one.
Oh, GT500 or GT350R?
The new one?
Yeah. Because I'm a 350R fanboy. I want one.
Whoa.
Give me one.
So hard. The GT500 is so much better than it has any right to be.
Right.
It's so much better. But God, the R is also so good.
Well, my argument about the 500 is that there's so many cars that make ridiculous power that can go around a track like that, but there's very few 350Rs in the world now.
I would say
manual, and it has manual.
It has a manual. However, I would say that the Camaro SS1LE is better than the
Don't tell me
the
that.
350R. And we know it's quicker
because it's going to be gone.
We know it's quicker. Actually, it's quicker in a straight line than the car that makes more power. So that Shelby's not put it down. I'm going to go GT500.
Okay.
I'm going to go GT500 because it's such a good car.
Right.
It's such a good car.
That's fair. I mean,
and the brakes are better than anything in the world.
Yeah. Wow.
It's that good. Yeah. It is that good.
That is great.
And I can't believe it's that good. But
totally.
It is.
All right.
By the way, same chief engineer. So.
As well.
For both cars, the GT350R and the GT500, same guy. Steve, I think his name is.
Steve.
Way to go, Ford.
Steve, look up Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Google Steve at Ford.
More Steve.
All right, guys, I think that's time.
Yeah, it is time. A couple questions that we skipped over, but yeah,
we'll have you on again if we'll bother you again. We'll have more cars coming. But
this is great. Yeah.
No, Johnny, thank you for coming on in the middle of this pandemic.
Yeah.
It was a blast, and that's our show, guys. Thanks for watching Coming in Clutch. My name is Lorenzo Iacomini, aka the Speedy Guidi.
And my name is Cody Lewis, a.k.a. the LA Car Spotter.
And that's Johnny Lieberman. Make sure to give him a follow.
Yeah. Instagram, just Johnny Lieberman. No H in Johnny.
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Awesome.
Cool. That was good?
Yeah.
Are you going to intro him?
Yeah.
Okay. Or you're introing him?
I'm introing and you intro the show.
Okay.